God answered that prayer like in a day or in like 2 days by bringing James into my life through Instagram, and now we are married. Hi everyone, I'm Christina, and in today's video I'm gonna share my story of how I met my husband on Instagram. So James and I have been married for 2 years now, and we have been together for over 3 years. And yesterday we celebrated our 2-year wedding anniversary, and it was amazing. And so I just thought I will share our story on YouTube, and just hopefully it can inspire and encourage someone out there. So a little bit about me. I'm from Ukraine, but for the past 4-ish years I've been living in Germany because I attend university here. I got saved right after high school when I was 18, and then I moved to Germany, learned German, and started attending university here. And as I started growing in the Lord, I realized that I wanted to marry someone who is Christian and who will also share in my beliefs. So when I went to university in Germany, I had this expectation that I will meet someone and it will be amazing, but I found that there weren't that many Christian men at my university, at least not the ones I knew personally, or maybe they just weren't very open about their faith. I did attend church in Berlin, but at that time it was pretty young church. It had a lot of couples, a lot of families, but didn't seem to have a lot of single young Christian men. So I felt a little bit discouraged, and I started praying, and I started asking God for a godly husband, and for someone who truly loves Him and who wants to serve Him. And yeah, I just started praying and asking God for a godly husband. And I remember one particular evening in December, I was in Ukraine and I was just visiting my family for Christmas, and I just felt really discouraged. It was Christmas time and I watched all those romantic Christian movies, and I did not have a husband and I didn't even have a boyfriend, and I was like 20 years old and I never dated anyone, or I never had a boyfriend. I did go on one date, but I did not have a boyfriend in my 20 years. And so I felt really discouraged, and I was just almost crying and really asking God and praying for a godly husband with whom I can just share my life and get married, and yeah. So, but at the same time, on that evening, I also remember surrendering to God and just telling Him, if it wasn't His will for me to marry, ever, I know that I'll be fine because I have God. It was kind of hard to say that, but I just felt like it was necessary for me to surrender my life to God and my love life to God, and not just take things into my control or whatever. So anyway, I prayed the prayer and I went to sleep. Okay, at the same time, on the other side of the world, James, my husband, at the time still lived in the US because he is from the US. And so on the other side of the world, it was also Christmas time, and he and his friend were kind of jokingly talking about girls. And James never had a girlfriend before. He did go on a few dates, but now nothing ever worked out. And so he felt also discouraged because he was not at a Christian college, and he went to a secular college, and it was just really hard to meet Christian girls there. And so one night he was jokingly talking with his Christian friend, and they were just kind of joking about girls and what they were looking for. And James mentioned that he wanted to marry someone who is a Christian, who is also somewhat interested in economics or finance. James studied economics in college, and so he just wanted someone who is somewhat interested in economics and finance, so that he can talk to her about it and she can understand him at least to some extent. He also found it exotic if someone had a foreign accent, and Russian was one of the accents that he mentioned that he enjoyed. So then, so what happened next? A few days after talking with his friend stumbled upon my Instagram account. So I had a Christian blog at the time, and on my Instagram bio I said that I was a Christian, I studied economics in college, which was true, and I also was from Ukraine, and Ukrainians speak both Russian and Ukrainian. And then I said I was a Christian blogger. And then my Instagram profile also had a picture of me like smiling with a big smile. And yeah, but I didn't have a lot of like pictures of like my body or anything because I was a Christian blogger, obviously. And so I was really modest on Instagram, and I would mostly post actually quotes, Christian quotes and Bible verses. Maybe there was like 1 or 2 or like 3 pictures of me and probably like my face or whatever. But there was like not many pictures of me on Instagram at all, like except for like the select few like portraits I had of me smiling. So anyway, James's friend found my Instagram account, and he's like, wow, that's like exactly what James just described to me is his like perfect wife or whatever. And so he takes a screenshot of my Instagram account and sends the screenshot to James. And so James looks at my Instagram account, and he got interested, and he looked me up on Instagram, found me on Instagram, and started commenting and liking my posts. And then he found my website through my Instagram, he found my blog, he started like leaving those big comments on my website, the biggest that like I've ever received from anyone. He would like leave essays underneath my blog posts. So that was his side. So anyway, returning back to my world, I'm still in Ukraine. I am there for Christmas holidays with my family, and just last night I prayed for a godly husband. And so I wake up the next morning. I don't remember for certain whether it was like the next morning or whether it was like the day after, but I remember that around that time, it was the time when James started following me and started commenting on everything on my blog. And it was kind of cool because like God answered that prayer like in a day or in like 2 days by bringing James into my life through Instagram, and now we are married. That's like mind-blowing to me to think about right now, but that's what happened. So anyway, James reached out to me and we started talking, we started chatting, and initially I saw this like big essay underneath one of my blog posts that James has written, and I was like, wow, the guy must be really like mature believer, because like what he wrote was like really wise and really mature, and I was like super inspired by that. And then he added me on Facebook to friends, and we started chatting. And usually I would not like add people to friends that I did not know in real life, but this time I was like, well, I make an exception for him, like what's the worst that can happen? Like he has already been following me for some time and commenting for some time, so you know, I give it a try. And then we started chatting on Facebook, and after chatting for a few weeks and getting to know each other better and better, yeah, we kind of started to like each other. And then James is like, so Christina, would you like to do a Bible study with me over Skype? And that was like a really clever way to like propose for like a first date, because he knew that I was a Christian blogger. So of course I'm not gonna say no to a Bible study, right? And so I'm like, okay, sure, we can study the Bible. And so yeah, that's how our first date happened. And it was quite another story. Maybe I'll share it at some other video of our first date and how funny it was. I actually almost broke up with James after our first Skype call, which would have been a total mistake looking back at it now, but yeah, it was kind of epic, so maybe I'll share the story in some other video. But anyway, we had few more Skype calls and we felt like we really connected, and then a few months later James bought a plane ticket from the US to Germany to come and see me in real life. And so he came in May and we met in real life for the first time. And first it was like a little bit awkward because, you know, like he looked a little bit different. I probably looked a little bit different from what he like expected, because you can't like see like the whole person over Skype. You only see like the face and like sure they tell you like their height and everything, but still like there's some small things you don't see over Skype. And so it was kind of, it took us a few days to adjust to each other being in person, but we're still connected. And yeah, I guess like I just fell in love with him again, being in person. And then in that same trip we went to Ukraine, because Ukraine is relatively close to Germany. And so we went to Ukraine to meet my parents, and by that time we have already been talking about getting engaged. And so we kind of talked more about getting engaged, and James talked to my parents about it and asked their blessing, and they gave him their blessing. And he asked me to be his wife, and I said yes. And then 1 year later we got married in Ukraine. So it may seem like we a little bit rushed on engagement, since it was the first time we met in real life was the time that James proposed and we got engaged, but we still waited for the whole year before getting married. So even though at first we moved really fast, in total we have been together for 1.5 years before we got married. So we got married in Ukraine, and now it's been 2 years from that day. And yeah, just yesterday we celebrated our 2-year wedding anniversary. And yeah, we just really enjoy the story that God is creating. And I thought I just create this video to encourage and inspire anyone out there. The thing about our story is, I think, well, we both were really discouraged, and we were like, God, like, where am I gonna meet like that godly Christian spouse, you know, because we were both in non-Christian colleges, and our churches did not seem to have any like Christian single people with whom we would see ourselves in the future. And so we both kind of felt discouraged, and we were like, God, how in the world are we gonna meet someone who is Christian and who wants to like marry us? But anyway, I prayed, and James prayed, and his family were praying for him, because he is the youngest of all children, and all of his other siblings were already married at the time. And so James was the last one to get married. And so I think people were just praying for him to find a godly wife, because it just didn't seem like he had a lot of opportunity to meet a lot of godly Christian girls where he was at the time. And so people were just really praying for him, for God to bring a godly wife from somewhere. And I remember when I visited US and met his parents were like, yeah, like, we are really grateful that James found you, but we just didn't think that God would bring someone from like so far in the world to James. But yeah, they're still very accepting of me, and his parents are very loving, and they also gave blessings to our marriage. So anyway, all that to say, God does answer prayers, and even in situations where it seems like hopeless and like it's not gonna happen for you, God still has the power to make it happen for you if it is His will. And for us it happens through Instagram, and for me it seemed like God answered that prayer like almost overnight after I prayed that. But obviously that wasn't like the first time I prayed for a godly husband. That was just the most intentional time I prayed for a godly husband. I still like desired and prayed for a godly husband before that, I think, but yeah, God just brought us together in His perfect timing through His perfect means of Instagram. And yeah, we are just really grateful for that. And every time we share this story in a group of friends, people just light up and get all excited and inspired. And so I thought I will share this story on YouTube too, so more people can get inspired by it, hopefully, and get encouraged by it. So this is the first video on this channel, and I'm thinking of creating a channel centered around marriage and just marriage tips and dating tips for Christians specifically, and maybe sharing more of our story and how God has been working in our lives and in our marriage. And so if you're interested in something like that, then subscribe to the channel and also comment below what types of videos would you like to see in the future that focus on those Christian marriage topics. And if you enjoyed this video, then like it and share it with your friends, and share it with anyone who you think may be encouraged by it. Bye!